Welcome back to another amazing episode of Dragons and Demons Podcast, the podcast about real motivation. So we are back with another great episode. Again, we're kind of laying the foundation here for how to get started on your journey, how to prepare to break these goals down, how to accomplish your dreams, and me explaining how my journey has got it here. So I'm headed on a journey talking about discovering what motivates me, what motivates other people, and how to take those lessons and take that information and deliver it to people who could use it the most. With the idea of, if I could take some of this information and some of these things that I'm learning and some of these cases from other people and bring them to someone like myself at my lowest point, or my father at his sickest moment, and just allow them or myself a little boost, kick in the pants, a push in the right direction, whatever it takes. So we are back. In first episode 1, we talked about why I'm here. Episode 2, we talked about the physical aspects on how to prepare your body to get where you need to be. Episode 3, we talked about relationships and how those relationships are they're so important to springboard you into having a bulletproof mentality, a lack of fear, a push of confidence when you walk out that door, a comfortability when you return home. So here we are in part 4. Part 4 is going to be about the mental portion of it, preparing to slay your dragon. So the mental portion of how to kind of set your game face in order, how to prepare yourself mentally, the different aspects of things that I've competed in and what it took to get there. And again, if you can use some of these tools moving forward and what your goals are, I'm all about it. The first thing I wanted to discuss was the defeatist mentality. So the defeatist mentality is something that I've discovered as a coach taking over for a weaker football program. And the mentality I'm describing is when you have a group or a person or really just a common community that looks at some of the goals as if they're too lofty, and some of the purpose that you are out to do, other people look at it like, yeah, well, we're never gonna get there. I can't tell you how many times, how many things I wanted to change when I first came in as a coach, and people were like, yeah, we tried that before, it didn't work, so you shouldn't try it again, you're wasting your time. Or how many kids in front of me were like, well, what's the point, we're not gonna win. One of the most disturbing things that happened to me as a coach when we were facing a huge opponent, one that I've defeated once in my career, and they beat me handedly most of the other times. And I remember that first time we played them, and I'm coming from a 6A football program that went 10-2 the last 2 years of my high school career, and we went deep into the playoffs. And I'm sitting in front of this group of kids who at the time are probably 2-5, 2-4, and really down on their luck. And I was curious because all the rumors and all the things I had heard about the program we were about to play, and I told them all to close their eyes, put their head down, and I said, raise your hand if you think we have a chance against this team. Of 45 kids, maybe 1 or 2 actually raised their hand. And what disappointed me the most was there was this captain of the team, and I'm not going to say his name, a captain of the football team who had worked his butt off to get where he was, been a 3-year player in that program, and he was one that didn't raise his hand. And he was sitting right in front of me, and it hurt. So you put all this time and this effort and this energy into it, and you don't think we have a chance? It's sad. So it's a mentality of like, we don't stand a chance. There's no reason, there's no rhyme or reason, there's no purpose. There's no passion, there's no energy, we're just kind of going through the motions. So defeatist mentality to me, and I don't know if that's a real word or not, but it's something that I've always kind of discussed to my teams. So that defeatist mentality is one that you just can't, for the life of me, I was never able to overcome. It's one that was always something that, like when we faced larger opponents and people that were really better than us, that was when it was a bigger struggle. And it started going away when kids started to believe more in me as a coach and the program and the things we were doing. And everyone always said things like, well, work on smaller goals. You can't win them all. But if you can just break it down to be like, well, maybe this game we get 2 first downs. And things like that, those kids saw right through. And they were like, don't give me these baby treatment. Like, we know we're going to get our butts kicked. So really what changed for us was we found the right level of goals, and we found the right level of, we also were able to tweak our schedule and align things better for us. So that was a blessing. Really, you just kind of have to beat that mindset out of them by using things like the weight room and the off-season program, and building that trust from, look at all the work we've put in, look at all the time we've developed, look at all the work we've done together, and eventually it come around and you find those kids that you can believe in, those kids you can rely on to help you run the program. And that really helped destroy that mentality. So that was one of the demons we had to get rid of. In personal things, I've never been a huge believer in the defeatist mentality. I've never really been a product of it. I mean, there are times when like you get under a bar on a big bench and you're like, I'm just not feeling it today. All right, get out, walk out, you're done. You're not going to get it today. And I say that to kids before. Well, let me get under this and give it a shot. I don't know if I'm going to get it. And I stop them, like, then don't bother. And they like pause. They're like, why? Because if you walk into it with a mentality of, I probably won't get this, and I don't know if they're just saying that to me to make themselves feel better, but if they're walking into it with a mentality of, I'm probably not going to get it, then you probably won't get it. And there was that old saying, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're probably right. And that's the case right there. If you have any doubt, then there's a chance you might not get it. So cut out that defeatist mentality, get over it, move on, address that first, build that confidence by working your butt off behind the scenes, and it'll go away. So the next part I want to discuss, and again, some of you might be able to adapt this to your lifestyle, take some tips of this in your fitness journey or something along those lines. So I want to talk a little bit about the bodybuilding approach and the mental aspects of bodybuilding. So in bodybuilding, the thing I wanted to talk about was the mind-muscle connection, which is defined as the ability to focus tension in a specific muscle or region to make it deliberately contract. So this is like if you're doing a bicep curl, really like trying to focus your emphasis on truly feeling that muscle squeeze, contract, and stretch, and feel it move, and focus your energy and tuning everything else out. And my wife asked me before, like, do you need music to get through a workout? No, things like focusing on that and taking the really little small chunks and focusing on the movement. If it's a bench press focused movement, or a squat or a deadlift in powerlifting, or it's just a body part, or it's just a 10-minute walk or a jog, or if whatever that thing is, just focusing on the mechanics, the basic mechanics of it, and you can really tune out a lot of things. If there's stressors in your life, if there's frustrating things going on, if I can just shut all that mental brain energy down and focus on the little contraction in a bicep curl or a tricep extension or a shrug, if I can just focus just on that muscle group and kind of block out everything else, I can lift with the lights off, I can lift with no music, I could lift in 150 degree weather or 30 degree weather. It doesn't matter, because I'm focused on that one little muscle grouping and really squeezing it. So the tips in the mind-muscle connection in bodybuilding, they really focus on slow, controlled movements with lighter weight. So you see a lot of bodybuilders and they'll be doing like super heavy weights for flashy stuff on the internet. But then you see that one bodybuilder that's doing really concentrated work, because again, they're blocking out all of the noise, they're blocking out all of the distractions, and they're really focusing on just that tiny little muscle group squeezing. Jay Cutler was one that was, to me, he always stood out, because back in his day, it was Jay Cutler versus Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman was this monster who was benching 500, squatting 800, deadlifting 800, leg pressing 1950 or 2200. And he always had these monster movements. Meanwhile, Jay Cutler, who was always neck and neck with him or just behind him in all the bodybuilding stages, he was the guy benching like 225 on a guided bar. And granted, he could do way more than that, but like his focused and squeezed rep really made a change in his muscular development. So that was something that always impressed me. Obviously, Ronnie's the king, but there was something to be said about using lower weights, focusing, squeezing, and really deliberately thinking about that mind-muscle connection. And this can go beyond bodybuilding, but if you're, I was a woodworking teacher for a long time. And if I can, again, there was times when I would block out certain things, certain distractions around me. I had to just focus on the machine saw on that block of wood, what I was cutting, and block everything else out. Whether it was for accuracy of the cut, quality of the cut, or just safety, blocking everything out and focusing on that one channeled item. And granted, there are a million things that are buzzing around your world, especially if you're a busier person or a stressed out person. If you can just lock in and focus on that one tiny little thing for a short period of time, imagine the quality of work you're going to produce in every single thing in your world. So when I do write an episode for a podcast, most of these I write at wrestling practice when my kids wrestling. So I am in a hallway with a couple other adults who are talking to each other but not always engaged with me. We're in a hallway, I'm sitting in a chair, I have my notebook, a pen, and that's pretty much it. I don't have music in because I don't get good service there. I'm not in the wrestling room, so I don't see any of that. I'm just sitting with a notebook and my thoughts, and I'm writing things out. And I'm scribbling, I'm changing, I'm ripping papers out, I'm starting over. It's me focusing on one thing. And if you really want that quality of work, when I write nutrition plans for people, I'm usually sitting in a room with no TV, no phone. When I write lifting programs, I might have another one open just as a reference where I can kind of look at other things that I've tried. But again, it is just me and that piece of paper. I'm not thinking about everything else. And that's something I've always been really good at, and that's something that anxiety-wise, I don't carry a lot of stress, I don't carry a lot of anxiety, just because I'm able to compartmentalize and really focus on that one thing. I wish I had the secret, but again, it kind of to me points back to bodybuilding and that mind-muscle connection and just focusing and squeezing and putting all of your energy into that one little thing. I don't know where it stems from. I've always been able to do it. Maybe it goes back to some of my football training days, or maybe it was just me playing with Legos as a kid where I blocked everything else out and focused on the Lego. I don't have that answer, but that aspect of the bodybuilding approach of the mind-muscle connection, where you are just focusing everything you have into one little thing, blocking everything else out, it's therapeutic, it's re-energizing it, and the quality of what you're getting out of it is just amazing. So if you can find what your mind-muscle connection is, whether it's in bodybuilding, building Legos, coloring, there's adult coloring books, or writing, or whatever that is, if you can dedicate time to that, that's therapeutic. And that's one thing that I've always gone back to lifting, was always chasing that pump, always chasing that connection, and that always made me feel better. So if you can sharpen your brain and provide your brain those therapeutic aspects of something like that, highly recommend. 45 days. 45-day challenge for those of you who are looking for some change in your life. If you're looking for a diet trend, and a lot of people say diet should be a lifestyle change, it should not be a diet, it shouldn't be temporary. I don't believe in that. I think it should be temporary, because if you really want to make change in your life, it's going to suck, and you're going to have to do something drastic. And 45 days, while it may not be forever, it's short term, but it's also a time frame where you're going to see a lot of results. My wife and I are doing a 45-day challenge. You'll see it on social media. I'm about 17 days in right now, feeling really good, happy with the progress. She's at the same date. We've hit all of our marks, and there's an opportunity. If you can't be perfect, you can buy it back. This is all based on resolution stuff. So New Year's resolution, new year, new me, and here's a way to do it. Pick a time frame, 30 days, 45 days, and be perfect. Perfect is the best way you see results without giving yourself that cheat that will throw you completely off track. 45 days, be perfect, buy it back. If you make a mistake, do a 10-minute walk or something to buy it back, and I promise you'll be happy with results. Follow along on my social media at CoachB_knows, and you'll see what results we're putting together. I hope you join up. The mental approach to powerlifting is another one that I really wanted to focus on. So this is when you're trying to provide maximum effort and you're trying to give everything you have into your goal. So I referred to this on another podcast as my dark place. So when you've trained, you've gone through all the form reps, you've gone through all the focus reps, you've gone through all the training, the practice runs, the the mock meets, all of those things, and you've practiced every which way to where at this point, now we're just headed to a place where it's just going to take everything you have to produce the most amount of work that you can. And my example here in powerlifting is based around maximum effort at meet day, where it's go time. You have put in all this work, you've trained for 12 or 14 weeks or whatever your years for me, and now it's you and the bar and the judges, and it's time for you to show every ounce of strength that you have. And for me, I did a powerlifting meet a couple years ago where I maxed out at 479 in the lower weight classes. I was just getting acclimated, just really getting started on the powerlifting scene. And then a couple summers ago, started 510, I did 530, then I did 570, and then I tried 580. Those are my bench press numbers in the meet. Now I did bench only because I had an adductor injury and I couldn't train the squat and the deadlift the way I wanted to, so I couldn't do those. But bench only day, my dark place. My wife asked me once, where do I go when I'm under that? And some people can get under that and knock it out and be happy and cheery, and others, it's not that way. Eddie Hall is a strongman competitor. He's done powerlifting, he's done a little bit of everything, he's even doing some MMA now. He talks about his dark place and some of the places where his mind goes, and he went and talked to like psychotherapists and psychologists and really trained himself to go to those really dark places. I didn't do all that training, but I can really bring up some dark things and really lock my brain into a worst case scenario sort of deal, and goes to a very dark place, which I would really like to keep personal, not share with too many people, but let me get into it a little bit. So what comes to mind is those videos when like there's a kid trapped under a car and a mom has this superhuman moment where she freaks out and she pulls the kid up off the car, and they have like this for lack of a better term, these like hulking type of moments where they're able to do superhuman feats just because of everything else was shut out. This was a last case scenario, I have nothing left, and you see it on the news from time to time. There's been specials done on it, but like that is the mode we want to get to. And clearly when you're at a powerlifting meet, you're not really in that energy. There's no one's life at risk. There's no immediate danger that you need to really turn it on and be able to do that at. So you kind of need to imagine that, but it's really hard to do. There's also like the memory feedback loop that you can kind of get into. And I did some of this in high school, playing high school football and mentally preparing myself for. So there's pregame speeches and different things to get you fired up, and I've done some of that and talked about it. And I was never the great speech giver when it came to football things, because I was the one where if you just yelled, I'd probably get fired up and get ready to play a football game. But I would always watch like horror movies before football games and imagine those really dark things happening, and I would just be, all right, that's not going to happen to me, and let me take that to the field and let me attack my opponent as if they're the bad guy in the film. So taking some of that and then putting myself under the bar. So on meet day, and I've done a couple mock meets or some heavy max out days, so I've kind of gone to the same place, but on meet day it was different. So meet day was interesting. So on a powerlifting meet, it's squat, bench, and deadlift in that order typically. And when I get there, everyone's squatting, and I get there and I check in. For this last meet, I weighed in. I didn't have to cut weight. I was really trying to gain weight, so I weighed in, felt good. I got there as late as I possibly could. Some people do weigh-ins the day before just because they want that window in order to try and pack on some of the weight and gain some of that calorie back, the calories that they lost in trying to cut down for it. But I just went about my business. I went in there late because I wasn't worried about making any certain weight. And then I was in it for the long haul. So while everyone else is back there with a team and they're pumping each other up and everyone's got the different nerves going and they're all excited and animated in many different ways, you go to the back room where it's like the warm-up station, it's the hangout. I just pulled a chair up to the side, I sit down, got my headphones in, I got my phone, I'm chilling, I'm on my phone watching videos, texting people, whatever. I got my phone, and my go-to song was actually for both my powerlifting meets. And for powerlifting meets, there's a lot of different things. You got nerves, you got pre-workout with stimulant in there that really jumbles up your stomach. Some people are taking some other things to kind of counter that, so they're not going to the bathroom every 5 minutes. You have the excitement of the meet, you're going out to watch people, you're listening to all the people get fired up. But again, it's all about keeping calm until that last minute where you fire everything. So I would sit there and listen to Nina Simone, Feeling Good on loop, with a bunch of other songs that were just like calm, cool songs that I could just keep my nerves down. I would have a friend with me to crack jokes with, or my brother or somebody, just to keep everything calm and chilled out. And then as warm-up time would come, it would still stay the same, and everything would stay calm and even keeled. My pre-workout would be in my system. I would be getting, like, I could feel my muscle fibers start to go. I could feel the caffeine, I could feel the beta-alanine, I could feel all these things kind of kicking in. But again, it's all about just keeping everything calm and even keeled and slow. And then when it came time to, all right, the funny thing is about that powerlifting meet, when my opener was 5'10", so everyone's kind of looking out the room like, man, who's this 5'10"? Like, I could hear them say as I read through the meet chart, like, 5'10", who's that guy? And I'm like sitting right behind them. But again, I'm just even keeled, cool. Like, I might have looked like I was on Quaaludes or something because I was just vibing. But again, it was just all about keeping the peace and keeping everything quiet. And then when it was go time, like, it went through the whole warm up. Then when it was go time, it was like, all right, I got about 5 minutes. I'm coming up. That's when you turn on the banger music, the songs that are your go-to songs, and that's when you start to picture yourself in these. For me personally, I was picturing myself in the worst possible case scenario, something that I would never be able to imagine outside of that, to the point where I'm either gonna haul off and fight somebody, go into tears, or I'm gonna go hit this number in this powerlifting meet. So I have this music, I have these thoughts, and my eyes are closed, I'm in a very dark place. And then what kind of snaps me out of it is you hit the smelling salts, you get smacked on the back as hard as they can by my brother or somebody, and then I'm walking out there. And when you walk out there, it's me, whatever situation I created in my head, in the bar. And it's kind of similar to the Michael Jordan thing, where he apparently went to this restaurant, saw an opposing coach, and created this dialogue in his head that never happened, where he was like, that coach said that, all right, I'm gonna make you eat your words. And the same thing on Waterboy and some of these other movies that come out. So you're creating this scenario in your head that never has happened, probably will never happen, but now it's like, that's real, and me and this bar are about to settle it. So I hit my 5'10", pretty easy, go back to the back, and again, people are dapping you up, oh, you're the 5'10" guy, smacking you on the back, good job, chatting you up. And then I go back to my music. It's probably another 15-20 minutes before I'm back up again. I put on my Nina Simone, trying to calm it down, trying to get my heart rate down, catch my breath, resolve everything, bring everything back down. All right, here I come, time to bring it back up, turn on my music, get fired up again, close my eyes, put myself in that place, smacked on the back, fired up, get under the bar, do my lift. And you do that same thing 3 times. And it's amazing to see the response your body goes through when you put yourself through such extremes in that world. It's really, it's astounding. So that point, and that transitions me to my next point. So that point of complete physical exhaustion really shows, and even your CNS, your central nervous system, starts to have some adverse effects there. So I wanted to point up, so when you are putting yourself to the point of 100% or 99% complete exhaustive failure, and you have put yourself in this emotionally draining and dark place, it's almost catastrophic. Like I almost had flu-like symptoms coming off of that platform. Your body begins to respond in a very unique way. So after that meet, I felt like my blood pressure was elevated for like the next 2 days. Like you could see it in some of the pictures afterwards, and my face was blood red for like 24 hours. and my hands hurt, and it wasn't so much from the bar, like it was from squeezing and all the tension. My hands felt like they were shaking for like 2 days afterwards. And it's an upper body lift, but like my spine was like my spine was sore. Like I've never had that feeling in any other world, but like just things that like you could tell it might not have been everything I had, because I think there was something in the tank maybe, but man, just that feeling when you're and you also see it in powerlifting, right? When you're performing these high numbers, and like when you're so in training for that 570 bench, I was lifting reps of like 450 plus or 500 plus in reps and series of sets and reps for 2 days a week for 12 weeks. And again, you have to do a deload week, but in that time frame, just like the complete soreness from head to toe just from doing bench work is insane. And to feel your central nervous system respond that way is amazing, that the human body can go to these extreme levels. And the complete exhaustion there. So I did, if you're not counting my warm-up reps, I did 4 reps of bench press, and I felt like I was in a train wreck. And for 3 or 4 days, I felt completely exhausted. And I didn't do a full meet. Again, some people are doing 3 squats, 3 deadlifts, and 3 benches. And if they get the opportunity to do a state record and get a 4th, and all their warm-up reps, it's amazing to feel that point of complete exhaustion. So if you can get yourself, and I don't even know how to translate this for anything outside of powerlifting, but that mental effort and the research it takes and the things that go into just doing that one thing, it's truly outstanding. If you can lock your brain into focusing and channeling all that energy into one spot for one event, nothing's going to stop you. Now, the next part I want to bring up is the mental approach to self-education, or the mental approach to self-regulation, self-improvement. So one thing that I like to do with this is take what your flaws are and turn it into your obsession. So all through high school, just like every other kid in my area, in my program, and a lot of high school boys, my focus in lifting was bench press. How do I become the strongest bench presser ever? And I had a lofty goal of trying to beat my brother. My brother did 405 as a senior in high school. I wanted to accomplish that. Now, graduation, we were probably like 50 pounds apart, maybe more, or he was heavier than me. He did 405 as a senior in high school. I did 385. So I didn't quite get there, but I tried. But that was my goal. I obsessed over bench press. When I wasn't in school, I talked about bench press. When I had downtime, I did everything I can trying to improve my bench press. I watched videos, I read books, I did what I could. Obviously, I could have done a whole lot more knowing what I know now, but that's beside the point. When I got to college was really when this self-improvement idea kind of came to mind. So I'm in college, and I'm a college football player, and I'm one of the strongest kids in the program, and kind of all around, but mainly in the bench. But when it came from bench press to go to power clean and squat, 2 areas that I was weaker in, and I saw these other people who were in my lifting group for bench are now in the top lifting group in these other lifts, and I'm in one of the bottom ones. I was like, this is absurd. Why can't I balance out my numbers? So then I started to, like, you know what? Why don't I take one of these flaws and turn it into a focal point and spend all of my time and energy in focusing on that? So I took the power clean and I broke it down into each of its small components, and I studied it. I read books. I'm reading the Russian training books from 1960s to all the way up to current trends in Olympic powerlifting. And then when it came to squat, I emphasized and put all my energy on, let me try and improve that. I'm training that 2 or 3 days a week. Then I stopped playing college football. The power clean thing kind of went away because it wasn't really a common practice, and especially the gym I was training at, it wouldn't have worked out. So then I obsessed over squat. Everything I wanted to do was around squat. I wanted to work on my hips and my glutes and my calves and everything to improve my squat. My bench was still solid, but I wanted to just focus and make my squat the best lift possible. And what I noticed then was my obsession turned into like I enjoyed it. So my obsession in squat turned into an enjoyment of squat, which turned into a huge improvement in squat. So I was that kid in high school who was almost a 400-pound bencher, but I could barely get there in a squat, and I was not there in a deadlift. So my numbers were significantly lower than they should have been. So my obsession turned into my passion, turned into enjoyment, which turned into progress. And then I became a pretty darn good squatter, and I was hitting depth, and I was training all these different variations, and I'm again reading books and talking to people and studying people and training with different people to try and get different aspects, and I'm trying different patterns out in your footwork, and I'm trying different placement of my feet, trying to my knees in different directions, and training in a different way just to try and improve that every single day. Then I got to the point where I think I squatted like 675. I couldn't even tell you because we didn't have many video cameras back then, but I mean, I had some pretty high numbers in a small gym where I didn't have anybody else. It was me training by myself. And then the next cycle was, all right, let me improve my deadlift, and I became obsessed with the deadlift. And by this time I'm working and I'm out of there. And I had some knee injuries and my adductor injury and some different things set me back. But then I got into Smolov Russian volume training, which was an insane thing to do for deadlift. My hands had holes in them because of training for that. But you're talking heavy lifts 3 days a week for high volume, high reps. It was extremely painful. I would not recommend it for deadlift, but it's actually designed for squat, and I've seen a lot of people have success with it in bench press. So again, making the deadlift my obsession and making it my enjoyment and fulfilling that need of that bulk time while also still not leaving my squat behind, not leaving my bench behind. And my numbers got pretty high there. Where that translates in the rest of my life. So again, I came out of high school, was obsessed with football, knew I wanted to somehow get back and coach and get involved with mentoring young men, and didn't really know what I wanted to be. So here's my different outlets, my different channels. So as I'm trying to discover what my major is, all right, I'm gonna go in undecided just like everybody else, and we'll figure it out. All right, well, let me go business because my brother said it's easy and I've heard a lot of people do it, so let me try that. I took a couple classes and like, all right, let me try getting into teaching. So what's the easiest route? All right, let me try history. I know a lot of people do that. Took a class or two and was like, this is miserable. You know what, in high school I was good at math. Let me try math. And I got down the road there and I was like, I just couldn't see myself teaching math. Took one woodshop class and was like, this is awesome. This might be my path. So I go down that path, I'm headed down that road, and I get pretty high into some higher level classes. And I had a college professor who said to me after a presentation where I bombed, I am not a good public speaker, and I bombed, and he pulls me aside after class and he's like, maybe you should reconsider a different major. You might not be cut out for teaching. Okay, got you, sir. Doctor, and I'm not going to blow you up here, even though I'm sure he hasn't been on social media since ever. Got you, but here we go. Now that became my obsession. Public speaking became my obsession. Teaching became my obsession. How can I turn this displeasure, this worst conversation I've ever had, into in your face, I got it, I'm going to be the best that I can be now. And I did. I busted my butt. Maybe he didn't like my presentations. He always kind of talked down on me, but I found my way through it. And when I graduated from there, I got a teaching job right away. I was one of the first 5 or 6 people in my class to get a job. That second year out of that, I got new teacher of the year in my department. And I went back to that college and I had to present in front of the graduating class of that year. And I got to share with them all of my experiences, got to share with them my award, and got to say to that teacher, and there was a teacher in this school, there was a professor at this school who did not believe in me, who's the reason why I'm here is because I wanted to turn this hater into my motivator. And again, I took that fact that someone was like, you can't do this, and I made it my obsession. Same thing with football. I had people all along that told me this wasn't worth it. I turned it into my obsession. I was at the school while I was a football coach. I would not let myself leave until I spent 12 hours minimum there. I would be like, you know what, there's not really a whole lot to do. I will find things to do, and don't tell my wife this. I would find things to do to try and improve the program while I knew I was done for the day. And then I would go home and spend time with her, and I would be obsessed with, how do I install this new scheme? How do I attract this new coach? How do I recruit this new player? And it just became my whole life. When I left high school football, I knew I wanted to play college. When I left college football, I swore I didn't want another thing to do with football ever in my life. I was so miserable when I left that I was like, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with it. And here I am coming back, turning it into my obsession, having some success, and going from there. And then finally, the last example I have is the master's program that I just finished a little while ago. So again, education wasn't always something that I enjoyed. Towards the end of my bachelor's degree is when I was like, you know what? I really enjoyed like these classes. I'm starting to understand my learning. I'm starting to understand how my brain works. And I was getting good at learning in my head. I struggled at the beginning of college because I didn't have good study skills. High school was a breeze, and I kind of just got through on merit. The end of my bachelor's, and I was like, let me get into my career. Let me figure out if this is what I truly want to do. So then I start my master's program, and I kind of loved it. And I loved the education part. I loved how much learning I was able to absorb and implement at that time. And that educational process became another obsession of mine. It became something that you can't coach, you can't teach, you can't do all these things at the same time. Like, all right, I'll figure it out. So it became my obsession to stack things on my plate and prove people wrong. So I ended up finishing my master's degree while I was also head football coach. During that time, I was also head lacrosse coach, boys lacrosse coach for a year or two. I was a wrestling coach for a year. I've done so many things all stacked in there that that hard work became my obsession, continues to be my obsession, and just continue growing from there. So my biggest piece of advice, find your flaws and tweak that mentality and turn those flaws into your obsession. Find those flaws, turn it into your obsession, enjoy the fulfillment it gives you, and you will see progress immediately. And my example of running, like, I hate running. I wouldn't say it's a flaw because there's really no need in my life, but I could pick up, I've read 2 or 3 of the Goggins books. I could pick up those books, read that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start running. And I haven't yet, but I haven't had the desire to turn it into my obsession. I don't think it's a huge flaw. Last summer, I went on a 6-mile run and I survived, so I'm like, you know what? Not my worst flaw. As I continue to lose weight and get in better shape, I'm like, you know what? I could be back there if I wanted to. But if, let's say that was my biggest flaw that I wanted to fix, all right, couch to 5K program, or I'm gonna get out and walk 10 minutes today. Next month, I'll turn it into a 5-minute walk, 5-minute run. Then the next one after that, it'll be a 10-minute jog. The next one after that, I'm gonna do some sprint work and some 5-minute jog. Like, there's ways that you can turn into your obsession just by scheduling it in, doing the research, reading up on it. Again, you will enjoy that process. That process will be fulfilling, and then you're gonna see huge progress. So one more time, take your flaws, turn it into an obsession, and you will see positive results. Let me help you. So I've been putting out there a little bit for some people, and I have about 4 or 5 people I'm working with today, and 4 or 5 more that I'm going to start working with soon. Let me help you. So I've been writing programs, powerlifting, weightlifting, bodybuilding, fitness lifting. I've been writing programs on and off, mostly on, since 2008. So I've got about 16 years of writing programs, and I've been writing football programs for entire teams. I've been writing individual programs for people who are just trying to lose a little bit. I've been writing programs for people who are trying to be the best in the world at their class, at their sport, at their thing. So I've been writing programs for that for about 16 years. I've been writing nutrition programs for about 12 years. I took some nutrition courses in college, and since then, and worked at GNC. So since then, I've been writing nutrition and supplementation guides since then for some people, and I'm kind of putting it all together in one package. The follow-up to both of those is I'm also willing and able to do check-ins and make sure that the results are getting back in, making sure things are consistent, and following up for what people need. If you're interested, please reach out to me at CoachP_knows. I'd be glad to touch base with you and see what your goals are to try and figure out how I can help you. I have people that help me. I'll be honest. I have coaches in my world, and I couldn't do it without them. So if you're looking for that extra bit of help, whether it's just, hey, I want some guide, I want some guidance, I want some guidelines, I want some rules, I want some hard and strong rules on what I should do, how I should train, what I should eat, then I can give you those too. If you want some self-education stuff, I can kind of give you the tools you need to educate yourself. But I'm all about it. I just love giving back. I love sharing my knowledge, and I love helping people. So if you're interested, hit me up. Send me a message at CoachP_knows. I'll add you to the list, and we'll get you working. Let's go. My mental approach to problem solving. So I had an assistant coach, and he had this mentality, and I'm not going to put him out there yet. He might be one of my guests that I have here soon. But he had this mentality, and he was a business guy, that he would walk into a conference room and he would instill confidence in himself, because he would look around the room and be like, I could beat everyone in this room's butt. And that might not be the case for everybody, but if you can walk into a room and have this self-importance or this self-confidence of, I have outworked everybody in here in one way or another, why can't I continue to do that in this meeting? And especially in my role now, where I'm relatively new, I'm low man on the totem pole. I do have a body of work, but literally a body of work, and a body of work in coaching that maybe I don't have the experience or the know-how in exactly what we're doing as a team, or what our goals are here, but I can promise you that my work speaks for itself, and the time and effort I put into my work speaks for itself. And I can promise you that the energy and efforts and the things that I'm gonna do moving forward are gonna be where we hit success. And the biggest growth that I've seen in my work life and in my personal life is in problem solving is the ability to go find the answers. So I have a pretty strong network when it comes to fitness and lifting and nutrition and football, and even in my professional world. Having a strong network is important. Having strong relationships, like I've said in previous podcasts, is important. But having the ability to go find that information, whether you are a strong researcher and you can use the internet, or I just like to go to people who know what they're talking about. If I'm doing nutrition for someone who has a specific need, I'm going to go to someone who works in that field. If someone is a diabetic, I'm going to find a diabetic who's had success, or I'm going to find a doctor who's had success working with diabetics, and I'm going to pick their brain directly. So finding someone who's in that specific field, on top of doing your research and beyond just Googling it, finding those exact resources that are there. I've always found talking to people directly who work in these industries is been the most crucial. And in my football world, if I had a question about passing schemes, or if I had questions about specific styles of offense, I would find a local college. I would find people who always have dedicated time, are always willing to talk to people, and I would ask them. I would point blank, hey, can I come in and chat with you? And granted, some of these, like the football world and the powerlifting world, and some of these worlds are a lot more susceptible and open to that sort of thing. But there's always people who are experts in their field that are willing to talk one way or another. And don't be afraid to use social media, or just you pick up the phone and call someone and ask them directly, hey, would you be willing to talk on this topic? That ability to self-educate through networking or through research is amazing. And problem solving is just that. It's no one ever reinvents the wheel. So why do you need to? If you see somebody else who's had similar success in a similar problem, talk to them. And don't have any fear about what they may think, or if people think less of you. I would rather hire an assistant coach who doesn't have the answer, but would work their butts off to go find it, than hire a coach who pretends like he knows all the answers. And I feel like those people who just pretend or lie or they manipulate their way to pretending like they have the correct answer all the time, or they just deflect and push it off on somebody else. Those people aren't always successful, and those people are deflating and hard to work with. So if you can work with someone who's honest and open and can provide those connections to be realistic and be, I mean, the example I can think of as a teacher, kind of all over the place with this. The example I can think of as a teacher is if you're the student that has a million questions, right? And you ask a teacher, is that teacher the one to respond and be like, you know, I don't know, but I will get back to you tomorrow with that answer? Or you have the type of teacher that's like, sure, and they come up with some nonsense answer. So as a woodshop teacher, I was that one that would be like, ooh, bud, you got me. I don't know. I'll have to go look up this technique and get back to you on it. And I would go find someone to answer that question. I'd read it in a book. I'd look it up online. But if a kid was trying to make a specific cut, I wouldn't just be like, yeah, you can't do that here. We don't have that. Like, okay, let's get creative. Why don't you look up some ways? I'll look up some ways. We'll come back together. We'll figure this thing out. And we always figured it out. And maybe I'd be like, let's grab some scrap pieces because this looks tricky, and we'll practice it a couple times. And when we're ready, we'll do it, a live run of it. But again, that value of both of us educating, it created such a trust with that kid that kid was like, it wasn't like, he shut me down, I don't want to ask him any more questions. That trust was built in to where now we're self-educating, and that kid also has tools, and he saw me firsthand apply these things, so now he has tools to grow and educate himself moving forward. So I always saw that form of problem solving was important, to be able to put your pride aside and allow for that self-education, but allow for honesty, and networking is huge. So the next part I want to discuss is the millennial generation and the instant gratification that they require. So instant gratification falls under the millennials generation, and it's the written out definition of a desire for continuous feedback and improvement. And this generation was born between 1981 and 1996, so technically I'm in this generation. So the instant gratification generation is somebody who wants automatic, continuous feedback and improvement. So these are the people my age and younger, and even the Generation Z, I guess, is after us. So 1980s to present day, I see a lot of instant gratification things where if it's not given to me right away, I'm moving on. And you see it a lot in social media, but really I've seen it a lot in the kids that we teach and the kids that have come up in my football program. So one frustrating thing that I've seen over my time as football coach and strength coach, kids will come in the weight room, they'll put in a day or two, and they'll be like, I'm not coming back anymore, this isn't working. This doesn't happen overnight. This doesn't happen fast at all. This is one of the most slow and grueling processes, is to create and grow new muscle or change your body composition. It doesn't happen that fast. And I mean, my body, and again, I'm not happy with my body and how far I've come, but I've been training since I was 13, and I'm still looking to improve every single day. And kids who show up and just want, there's an interesting phenomenon that I've noticed with the kids that I've taught, and really noticed it like 6-7 years ago. We were in woodshop class, and we had refinished all the tables in the woodshop, the hard wooden butcher block tables. And to test their like spring ability, their bounce ability, or how well they were surfaced, we played ping pong and see how well the ball bounced. This table versus that table. This table is finished with this material. This table is finished with this material. So let's see how we play. And what I saw when we got to playing and kids got competitive, and it always ended in a tournament of some sort. When kids got competitive, it became either you are the man and you are good at something, you are just automatically great. You're the man. You're the best. You're the king. Good job. He's awesome. That was one category. The other category was if you weren't that good, or if you were good and you tried and you practiced and you worked hard and you continued to try and develop, now you're considered a try hard which is not cool. If you're somebody who tries too hard to be good at something, it is not a cool category to be in. So that's category 2. Category 3 is none of the above. You're bad. You suck. So those 3 things is what I saw. You suck, you're awesome, or you try too hard. Isn't the goal in life to try harder and become better at things? It was such a baffling experience to watch this little game of ping pong turn into this life-altering viewpoint that I could develop here. And I saw it everywhere. I saw it in the weight room with kids trying new techniques. Either, again, you're great at it and you're the man, and you don't even have to try. You can walk in, crush it, walk out, you're the king. Or 2, he's a try-hard. He's over here sweating, grunting, working his butt off. He's a try-hard. We don't like to hang with try-hards. And then the last one is, man, that kid sucks. Get him away from me. I'm going to clown him for it. You also see it in things like basketball and PE class and different, like, it's just such a separation where when I came up, and I guess I am part of this generation that I'm talking about, but when I came up, it was the hardest working kids were the cool kids. Those were the kids you wanted to hang with. Those are the kids that the grunting, the sweating, that's what it was all about. And to see that be belittled by, it was amazing. It was so, and there has been a change in that, and our success in the football program, and from the kids that I worked with, there has been a change in that, and hard work has become cool again. And I don't know exactly what the correlation is there, but having success takes hard work, and seeing that hard work into fruition has been outstanding. And I think that the hard work turning into success is what made kids like, all right, it's kind of cool to try hard. But and what our new head coach is doing now, which I really like, and I wish I kicked myself for not doing. In the weight room, he's made it like his number one emphasis to stop allowing kids, or stop allowing coaches or people to put other people down. And I always made a huge deal out of it as a strength coach and as a head coach. I always made self-improvement or improvement in those categories and the different lifts like your number one criteria for all season points. So some kids are going to come in and be like a 95-pound bencher because they've never lifted before. They're small and tiny, but then they work hard, and that 95-pound bencher is now like a 155-pound bencher because they've worked, they've eaten, they've done everything right. They've improved by 60 pounds. Whereas your strongest kid is a 215-pound lifter, and he is now a 225-pound lifter. That kid's already towards his peak, and he's only been able to improve a little bit, which is a lot. It's hard to improve. I mean, there's power lifters that are improving 10 pounds in a year, and they're thanking the Lord that they've gained that much. But then that kid that was the weakest kid in the world to begin with, and now he's put on a little bit, but he's still not very strong. That improvement is incredible. And one thing that our head coach is doing now, and again, it's awesome, is we're not putting those kids down. So years ago, we would see kids like bench 105. We had kids that couldn't even bench the bar. We'd have to get a special bar out for them, and they would get laughed out of the weight room. And I'd yell at them, and I just couldn't correct it because I couldn't be in every kid's ear at once. They would get laughed at, they'd get made fun of. That kid would stop trying because now it's not cool to try hard. I suck, I'm done. And then the kids that were just naturally strong were the cool kids. They were the best. Man, good for you, you're awesome, I can't win, blah, blah, blah. And then the kids in the middle, that was the group that we kind of worked on. But it also, working in that the try-hard group and making them cool again, allowed for those smaller kids. And what Coach is doing now of not letting people put each other down, it's been amazing. Those kids that came in maxing out 115, and for that moment when he's maxing out and he's giving it all he's got, and you just see the work ethic and the push, the drive of that kid trying, it's the coolest thing to celebrate. And you got the strongest kid in the room who can bench double that, is now dapping him up, patting him on the back, good job, can't wait to see you improve. That's the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding. I've talked about it before. Bodybuilding is very subjective. You can't really see the change. You can't really measure the change in one competitor for the next. But in powerlifting, you can. So in powerlifting, you have different weight classes, you have different age brackets, you have different classes of pro, elite, amateur, and then you have obviously different weights. So they celebrate. In powerlifting, everybody's celebrated. When I was the 5'10 bencher, knowing who I was at first, but after I came out, I was like the king of that back room. Every bencher was like, oh, there was another guy that was like 1,000-pound bencher, but that's a different story. But everybody that was back there saw me and was like, man, how do you do it? Like, they would give me pointers. I cramped up real bad. Some other dude gave me his massage gun, and it was like the camaraderie there. And I've still been in contact with some of the people I competed against at one of my first meets. And we're talking about doing another meet together. We're talking about hanging out. He lives a couple states away. Like, it's really cool to see that, just that positive push where the try hard group is the focused group, and that's the cool group now. That's where the society needs to get back to. Tryhards, people who bust their butts to get everything they want, that is the group that should be put above the group that's just automatically good. That's the group that should be put above the group that just sucks and they cast out, so they quit. The tryhard group out of that generation, that needs to be corrected, but the tryhard group should be put above all. This instant gratification generation needs to be corrected. They need to be checked. These are the kids that are swiping through social media and they want that instant feedback. They need that instant feedback loop. If I don't have an answer for why I need to do this, is this going to be on the test? No, so I'm not doing it. Is this going to be graded? No, so I'm not doing it. Is this going to be improving my bench today? No, so I'm not going to do it. Is this going to allow me to lose 5 pounds this week? No, so I'm not going to do it. These things need to be corrected because these things don't happen overnight. So if we can fix that, if we can address that and make tryhards cool again, maybe that's my political slogan, making tryhard cool again. If we can make tryhards the goal again, if we can make that work ethic the high goal again, if you can make that a priority, no one's going to stop you. You're going to achieve all your goals. You're going to get everything you want. That's just the way it is. Hey there, podcast fans. Do you want to check out Real Love? Do you want to hear real conversations from a real relationship? Take a listen to The Real Kevlar, a story about our bulletproof love story. This is a story about me and my wife. We met when we were 14 on the bus to 8th grade. We had a couple classes together then, which has blossomed into a beautiful, loving family that we have now. We share tips and hints, and we just share each other's life story. I can tell you in the half year that we've been doing this, it has really blossomed our relationship. If you want to compare notes, if you want to empathize, if you just want to have some laughs and some tears with us, or with her, I guess, then take a listen. The Real Kevlar on all podcasts and Spotify means The Real Kevlar, our bulletproof love story. Check us out. And finally, having the mental composure during adversity. So this is something that I flourished in throughout my coaching career. There wasn't a whole lot that could break me. There wasn't a whole lot of anxious feelings I would have. There wasn't a whole lot of... when you go through the worst scenarios in a football game, the best scenarios don't really break you. And if you can really just kind of keep breathing through it all, then that adversity hits and bounces off. So I've always been able to compartmentalize and handle the stressors. You can see my anxiety in some of the steps on Friday nights when I was coaching. I mean, I would hit like 35,000 steps. You can see some of that anxiety come out, but when stuff got crazy, you just got to look at the situation, look at the people around you, and if you surround yourself with good people and you've prepared as much as you possibly can, and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I have done everything I can to prepare for this event, there's no reason to fault at those adverse moments. You got to rely on the people around you. You got to trust those people around you. Again, having strong relationships and a strong network is a huge help here. But really, there's no reason to get amped up in an adverse situation. Stuff happens that is way out of your control. It's way out of the people around you's control. There's no reason to get all amped up when it's something that either A, is going to go away, or B, something that you could have never seen coming. I know it's much, much, much easier to say, and even to this day, having some adverse situations come up, it's hard to calm yourself in a situation sometimes, but these things are they're gonna come and go, and you just kind of have to deal as best as you can at the time, and learn from it. Take all of these things as learning lessons and put these in the memory bank. So if and when this does happen again, these adverse situations, that next time it's going to be a walk in the park. I was pretty amazed at my ability to handle these situations as a coach, and maybe my trial by fire consistency that I've kind of had throughout my career has prepared me for this. But when I was 24 years old, kind of got fumbled into the head coaching job, and I'm coaching for my 10th game. I was the head football coach against, I couldn't even remember what our first opponent was that year. Watkins Mill. My 10th game against a pretty good team out of Montgomery County, and we hosted them. And there was an adverse game too. No games are easy, but that game was a Friday night game. We had some thunderstorms. There was a delay, and that second part of that game was Saturday. So we came in and played, I want to say just over a half, but not quite enough for the state system to count it as a full game. In that second half of that game, we lost a couple of our key players just because they couldn't make it back. And you want to talk adversity. Getting the job 3 days into the season is one, but having coaches and players really just test the integrity of your program and your team. Again, you don't prepare for these sort of things, and as strong as a staff and as strong as of a preparing practice that we could have had, and as much work as we could have poured into being as successful as possible, doesn't prepare you for everything. So these things happen, they come up, and you just have to take a breath, realize that this is a learning lesson, realize that there's a reason why this is in front of you, and do your best to learn from it, and handle everyone with respect. And I've had my faults where things blow up and things happen, and you kind of respond in a negative light, and you yell back when someone yells at you, and it's not the best way to handle it. But again, learning lessons, and that exact scenario happened a little while later, and guess what? I was able to handle it much better because I kind of put this in the memory bank, and I stored it as, well, that sucked. I hope that doesn't happen again, and if it did, here's how I would handle it. And you kind of make these mental notes of like, whew, I just got my butt kicked, and maybe not in score, maybe by a scenario that took place, and here's how I'm going to handle it better next time. And when that next time comes up, all right, I was able to get through this first layer, but something else came up, and then you just kind of keep building. And in the job that I'm in now, there's a whole lot of things that I have never experienced before. And even some of the people I work next to, some of the best, most tenured people in my position that I work next to, I've seen them in situations that they've never dealt with before. And honestly, the more times you can put yourself in an uncomfortable place, the more comfortable you can be being uncomfortable. And I say that physically in some of the discomforting things I put my body through, and some of the disciplinary things I do with my diet, and challenges I put myself through. The more adverse things I kind of put myself through in that aspect makes the challenging things in my career and in my personal life even easier to deal with, because all right, we've been through this before. Let's go. We know how to respond, we know how to react, and we might not have the answer for this situation, but we know how to get it, we know where to go, and we won't let this happen again. So that's the end of the mentality portion of what we're talking about, preparing to slay the dragon. So I hope you can take a part or two from this and use it, learn it, share it, have it ready for your adverse situation, or have it ready for your future. I truly appreciate all the listeners that I do have. I know it's not much, but if you listen to the whole thing, please reach out and let me know. I do appreciate it. You can find out more at CoachP_knows, where I share daily content, if not cut-ups of this episode, then other things that I've been sharing. I look forward for future episodes. We will start having guests here soon. We're going to start having research-based documentary type of responses. We're going to have a lot of fun things coming up. So stay along for the ride, stay along for the journey. We're going to find ways to motivate me. We're going to find ways to motivate you. And if you want help doing any of these things, hit me up at CoachB_knows. Talk to you again soon. I'm out.